4, in the dark. The night smelled like sugar and smoke, like popcorn oil and cheap cologne, like something sweet poured over something that didn't want to be forgiven. Plastic jack-o'-lanterns grinned from the lobby windows. Cardboard bats hung from a ceiling that hummed with tired lights. Fog crawled along the floor in low white rivers, breaking around ankles and wheels. Somewhere in the din, a DJ promised "Moonlight Later," his voice bouncing off neon paint and plexiglass. 2 boys pushed through the glass doors together. They had been friends long enough to have the same bad jokes and different kinds of nerves. One of them swaggered on borrowed courage and a plastic cape. The other wore something heavier. He had picked it up from the shop where he worked part-time. Picked it up like a man picks up an idea he's been rehearsing. It wasn't one thing or another, not hero, not monster. The mask was molded into a face that wasn't a face, more expression than species. The fabric wasn't luxury or trash, but something in between. The weight of it more important than the cost. Rubber at the hands, a zipper with teeth that glinted no matter the light. On the hanger, it looked like a choice. On him, it looked like an answer. He knew it from the first week at the store. It lived on the top rack, high enough you had to want it. Dust settled around it, but never on it. Customers reached, then didn't. Some rented it anyway. They always brought it back on time. And when they did, their smiles came apart at the corners. They looked like they'd told themselves a lie and found it wasn't big enough to sleep in. He noticed. He always noticed. He told himself he was only curious. Curiosity is just hunger with manners. The girls arrived 10 minutes late in a gust of perfume and cold air. They were dressed to be noticed under blacklight, glitter like galaxies on their shoulders, hair coaxed into shapes that would defy wind, but not laughter. His date stepped through the door, and the room looked smaller. She had the kind of smile that made strangers remember their first mistakes. She moved like a song that already knew its chorus. Even if she hadn't been dressed for Halloween, she would have been a holiday in a room like this. Introductions stumbled out, quick and clumsy. Names were traded, then swallowed by the music before they could take root. It was meant to be a safe foursome, a buffer, a double date, where no one had to stand too bare in the light. He hadn't met her before tonight. She was a friend of a friend, the blind piece of the arrangement. But plans don't last long in rooms thick with intention. A call dragged one girl away to the payphone. A curfew snapped shut like a locked door. Excuses were mumbled, and in the end, one boy and one girl vanished into the night. The 4 became 2. His friend shot him a look, half grin, half shove, like this had been the plan all along. The boy swallowed air that tasted like sugar and cheap courage, then followed his date toward the rental counter. Skates found the floor. The floor found its rhythm. They stepped out into a river of motion, the polished wood giving them back a version of themselves that could glide. He wobbled at first, knees not sure who was in charge of them, ankles trying to negotiate with gravity. She steadied him with a hand at his elbow. "You're fine," she said, laughing. "You got this." Her voice made the room behave differently for a second. They moved together, badly, then better. He learned her cadence. The way she leaned into the corner before the corner arrived. The way she trusted speed the way other people trust rules. He talked too fast and then not enough. She filled the spaces with stories, the kind that bounce off surfaces until they choose a person to land in. She told him about a car that would only start if you sweet-talked it. A teacher who never learned names. The time she snuck into a hotel pool because hotel water tastes like someone else's life. He told her about a dog that ran away on a Wednesday and came back on a Thursday because hunger outranked adventure. She called him funny. He translated it to possible. The rink did what rinks do: turn bodies into intentions and intentions into collisions. The DJ threaded the night with songs that remembered the last chorus more fondly than the first. The mirror ball threw 1,000 small suns in all the wrong directions. Fog slid along the floor and pretended to be weather. Arcade cabinets at the edge of things made their electronic prayers. Near concessions, the air changed temperature and smelled like fries and salt and old birthday cake. In that smell, you could remember being forgiven for something you hadn't confessed yet. They took a break at the rail and discovered how close two people can stand without touching. She leaned in without permission. He stood up straighter without knowing why. The costume sat on him like a second posture. He had worn other things to be other things. This was different. The nervousness didn't vanish. It got used. His hands knew what to do before he asked them. Confidence is louder when it doesn't have to explain itself. "I need the phone," she said, tilting her head toward the lobby. The payphone had a queue of girls in lipstick and boys who tried to look like decisions. 2 minutes. "Yeah," he said, steady. "I'll be here." He went to the bathroom to celebrate in private. He didn't mean to. Bodies just know where to go to be alone with themselves. The fluorescence hummed like a tired choir. The sink coughed metallic water. He washed his hands and looked into a mirror that had been watched too fiercely by too many people. The face in the glass wasn't his exactly. It wore his height better. It arranged his jaw like it had seen a picture of how to do it. He grinned. The reflection grinned back a heartbeat later. It was late enough to be a trick of light. He chose to let it be that. "Different," he said, and it sounded like he meant better. The room agreed. It always agrees when someone decides they're allowed to be who they want to be, even if that person has to be borrowed. He pushed the door open, and the night decided to be something else. Music hit him first, a wall that wanted to be a wave. Lights were busy with themselves. Costumes were everywhere, trying on steps they would not dare in daylight. He scanned for her with a certainty that didn't have to look for reasons. When he found her, the certainty folded into a shape with sharp edges. She was at the snack bar, not waiting, not searching the crowd for a boy who had finally stopped apologizing for his bones. She stood under a rectangle of orange honesty beside a man who had chosen to be a pirate and somehow made it a biography. The pirate leaned in, and she leaned back just enough to make leaning look like surrender instead of invitation. The air between them acted like a secret. Something behind the boy's eyes tightened the way a fist does. The music that had been everywhere narrowed to where he stood. The mirror ball slowed until it was one stuttering moon. It would be easy to say he felt anger. Anger is simple and human and shareable. This wasn't simple. It was precise the way a measurement is. It was a decision rehearsed in the muscles before the mind could decide to object. She came back brighter than when she left. "Sorry," she said, which meant not sorry. "You ready?" "Yeah," he said. He sounded like he meant it. The sound came from further in than usual, like he'd found a deeper room to stand in. The DJ dimmed the lights and asked for couples. The room obeyed. The mirror ball's spilled stars slowed to a soft drift. Something like a ballad rose and stretched itself across the floor. Fog clung to skates and hems. The rails filled with people who liked being near intimacy but didn't want to be asked to prove it. They stepped out again. Her hand found his, then moved to his shoulder. The weight of it there changed the math of him. They moved, as if the floor belonged to them and had simply been renting itself out to other people. Round and round, past the birthday banner that had outlived the cake, past the arcade cabinets that considered letting a free game slip out in kindness, past the concession stand where oil made promises it had no right to make. Every time they passed the barricade near the far corner, she looked. Just her eyes. Just a second. It was enough. The pirate had stationed himself there like a flag that thinks it represents the ground. He rested one boot on the rail. He watched her and tried to make it look like he was watching the whole room. She felt it. The way a person knows when a window has been opened somewhere. On their third lap, something small happened. Small things are for other people. For the person in the middle of them, they are the only size there is. The pirate lifted 2 fingers to his lips. He blew a kiss that could be called a joke if you needed to pretend it didn't weigh anything. It moved across the air like heat you only notice when it touches your face. Her chin lifted a little. The corner of her mouth did the thing mouths do when they want to be both fair and cruel. He didn't think. He didn't have to. Thought is a long road when the destination is already in the body. He shifted his weight the way you move a chair out of someone's walking path. It was nothing. It was everything. Her wheel kissed his wheel in a language you only learn once and do not get to forget. Ankles told lies to knees. The floor introduced itself. They went down. People who weren't there later will imagine a loud sound. The truth was smaller. A soft thud. A single sharp note of skull on wood that sounded like a door being closed in a house where no one lives. The music stuttered but did not stop. Voices rose and then flattened into the sound a crowd makes when it realizes it owes the room a certain kind of quiet. She didn't move. He held her the way a man holds a thing he has been told he owns. "Hey," he said into her hair. "Hey." It sounded like love. It sounded like panic. It sounded like a line he had practiced without knowing he was rehearsing it. Around them, skates squealed, then halted, then remembered to be still. The lights tried to be brave. The DJ announced words that felt like apology, but were only information. The manager arrived with towels that could not be what the scene demanded of them. Someone called someone. Someone else did the math on how far sirens move through a night like this. The night decided to be longer than it had to be. He told his version to 3 uniforms who were trying to be careful with their faces. He told it again to a man in a suit whose tie was the color of withheld judgment. The man with the tie did not look at the floor. He looked at the boy. People always think they are telling their story to the air. They aren't. They're telling it to someone who will try to decide if the air is lying. Accidents happen in rooms built for motion. Knees open like fruit. Teeth meet wood and understand their place in the world. A collarbone finds out how fragile it always was. The man in the tie knew all that. He did not need to be convinced. He only needed to be convinced that this was one of those accidents and not one of the other kind. "Walk me through it," he said later, where the popcorn smell was thinner and the lights were honest. The boy talked. He used the right words. Slipped, fell, couldn't catch, didn't see. The words arranged themselves like furniture after a fight. You can still live in a room like that. You just bump into things. "Eyes," the man said after, "before the fall. Where were yours?" "On her," the boy said. And it was true in a way that didn't help him. The truth is rude like that. "Hands," the man said. "What did they do?" "Held on," the boy said. "Before you fell," the man said. The boy didn't answer. He looked at his hands like they had written a letter and mailed it without asking. They let him go because nights like this do not keep people who don't know how to be kept. He slept in the way people sleep when they cannot afford to dream. In the morning, he took what he had borrowed back to where it belonged. The costume shop looked smaller in daylight, which is another way of saying it looked like it should. Racks of other people's choices, smells that learn to live together, a counter where things become official. He put the costume on the glass and signed his name where the paper wanted it. Back on time, the girl behind the counter said, as if this was a kind of virtue. She checked the seams with the efficiency of someone who checks a lot of seams. She did not look at it the way he had looked at it. She looked at it like inventory. She hung it where it had been. The peg remembered. He would have left if the bell over the door hadn't decided to make its little yell. A man came in whose shoes didn't belong to rooms like this. He had the kind of face that had been trained not to do anything until it needed to. He showed his name and a badge mostly to the air. He asked for the boy the way you ask a wall if it intends to remain a wall. They sat in the back among boxes that said, "Winter, spring, ugly hats do not open." The man put a notebook on the table and then ignored it. People who do this job a long time learn to write less and watch more. "Tell it to me again," he said. The boy did badly. The words kept arranging themselves into the same crooked room. The man let them. When the boy reached the part where he stopped making sense, he stopped him. "What are you not telling me?" he asked. He didn't say it like an accusation. He said it like he already knew and wanted to know if the boy wanted to know whether he knew. The boy opened his mouth, then closed it. He looked toward the door. Through the door was the front of the shop. In the front of the shop was a peg. On the peg was something that had been on him, and then not. "I can't," he said. "Not without..." He couldn't make the next words obedient. He tried again. "I can't tell you without it." "Without what?" the man asked, still polite. "Politeness is a tool like any other." "The costume," the boy said. The words sounded ridiculous and true in exactly the same amount. The man did not look surprised. He stood and did something no one else would have bothered to do. He walked to the front. He stood near the rack where the peg remembered. He looked at it the way a person looks at the ocean. You can't see the whole thing, but you know to respect it anyway. Back in the storeroom, he leaned forward. "You put it on," he said, "and you weren't the same." "Yes," the boy admitted. "It pushed you," the man said, searching for the word. "No, it pulled you." "Yes, it didn't make you something new," the man said slowly. "It only gave shape to what was already waiting, perhaps." The boy did not answer. He looked at his hands again. Hands are mirrors you can't avoid. They tell on you even when your mouth has learned not to. The man closed his notebook without writing anything that mattered. He thanked the room and said, "I'll be in touch." He left. The bell made its little yell again, and the air returned to being nothing but air. The costume hung where it had hung. The store did what stores do, waited to sell other people back to themselves. A mother came in and told a child not that one and didn't know why. A teenager tried on a mask that made them brave and then decided they could be brave without buying it. Someone laughed too loudly and pretended they were only laughing at a price tag. Time does not pass in rooms like this. It stacks. Nights end because the clock is tired. Morning is only night wearing different light. If you stand still long enough, the whole year will try itself on around you. You want to know what happened, not the facts. Everyone always brings facts to the table like appetizers. You want something with weight. You want the thing behind the thing. You want the part that doesn't fit on a report. I did not cut. I did not crush. I did not choke. I convinced. I entered. I steered. He thought he wore me, but I wore him. I gave him a confidence he never owned. I gave him safety no lock could grant. I moved his hands when his would have trembled. I turned hesitation into event. I have always done this for the ones who let me. I am polyester and thread. I am rubber and glue. I am a zipper that binds flesh to impulse. I am the smell of dust and other people's nights. I am the top shelf that never gathers dust because I keep what others leave in me. Jealousies too small to confess. Cruelties rehearsed in silence. Envies that sprout teeth along my seams. Everyone who wears me leaves something. I carry it forward. I remember. When he pulled me over his head in a bathroom that smelled like metal and old soap, I slipped inside him the way agreement slips into a promise. I found the hollows where fear slept and suggested better uses. I tuned his nerves until they could play my song. I whispered steadiness into his bones until he believed steadiness belonged to him. Under violet light, when a kiss was thrown across the room like theft, I pressed where balance collapses. I steadied the hand that accident demands. I turned a feeling into physics, and physics into a story a crowd could live with. He thinks he did it. He will always think that when he is honest in the way men are honest with themselves, he will call it a moment. I call it a function. Tomorrow I will hang beneath buzzing lights with rental printed like permission. I will wait for new hands. I do not sleep. I do not tire. I keep accounts. When the door chime yelps and October breathes through the hinges, I will listen to footsteps and decide whose night becomes more honest when I am on. I am not decoration. I am the mouth that speaks when yours refuses. I am the truth whispered too late. I am the face borrowed to hide the trembling one beneath. Not the skin, the mask, not the boy, the thing wrapped around him. I am the quiet that makes violence simple. I am the reason balance falters. I am the echo no mirror can return. I will hang, I will wait, and when someone else slips me on, I will breathe again.
You have heard another tongue speak, not a man's, but the voice of what waits in silence. Things that kill, and then remember. Do you believe what you heard tonight, or something else? Leave your truth below, like, share, and subscribe, so the next tongue finds you first.